All right, folks, we are live on Google Hangouts. This is another Hangout vlog on Bible study aids. The last one I did was on the King James Study Bible, the brand new one that I recently had purchased. And there's a link in the description below this video, down below, that you can see where I have a link to that video if you want to watch it. Also, before we get started, I want to say if you want to speed this video up, make sure that you go to the right-hand side. Now, for me, I'm watching this on Google Hangouts and it's reversed, so it should be somewhere down here on your video player on the right-hand side for the little gear icon, the little settings icon, and you can click to speed this up if you're watching this recorded later in case you want to get through it. Usually, if it's a talking video, I like to watch it in at least 1.5, if not 2 times faster, so that I can get through it quicker. What I want to go over today is how to navigate a thumb index Bible, specifically the Thompson Chain Reference Bible here you see. Been using this Bible for over 15 years. I got my very first one, which I'll show to you here in a minute. I got my very first one back in 1997. Somewhere around in there, and just could not put it down. And so you can use these methods with other thumb index Bibles, but they won't have everything just like the Thompson Chain does laid out. The thumb index systems are different, but the way I'm going to show you these ways to navigate, you'll be able to use those on just about any Bible. But so let's get started. Just a little bit about the Thompson Chain Bible. I'll be using, now this is one that I purchased a couple of years back. Let's see, June of 2012 is when I purchased this Bible. I will be using the, let me find out where it's listed here. I'll be using the 5th improved edition of this Bible, okay? It's hard to maneuver this camera here. 5th improved edition. As far as I know, that's the newest one available. I heard that they may be coming out with the 6th edition sometime soon. I'm not sure. But they also have the Centennial edition. I don't know if it's different than the 5th edition, but this is the one I'll be using this for. They had updated the tabs just a little bit. Those thumb index tabs here, they've updated them just a little bit for this particular Bible. Now, the old way back when used to come in a box that looked like this. This is the old style of box that it used to come in. In fact, I'm going to pull this one out for you here in just a little bit. This is my dad's, one of his 4 or 5 Thompson Chain Bibles that he wore plumb to the ground, that he was using. And he let me have this one. He gave it to me. It looks just like this. Has the thumb index, the 5th improved edition is what this one says. And this was, even probably around the same time I had mine. And that's what the box used to look like. And I think my box actually looked like that too when I got my first one. But nowadays, the latest one that I bought 2 years ago, the box looks like this. So it's nice, and colorful. It shows you all the stuff that it has here. I'll just tell you right now, the Thompson Chain Reference Bible is one of the most comprehensible and exhaustive Bibles you'll ever find. It has so many wonderful features, especially for ministers. This is really designed more for a minister, Sunday school teacher, somebody that's going to be really needing to utilize the Bible in every aspect that they can find, whether it be from charts to maps to Bible harmony, gospel harmonies, and everything else you can think of. This has everything pretty much that you'll need, very well organized, and that's what the new boxes look like. Okay, now I'll have a link below as well if you're watching this either live or pre-recorded. Just look in the details section in the show more area of the section, and you can see a link where it says get your own Thompson Chain Reference Bible today. And there's a link to that. So you can click on that and get that. And this shows you, kind of an overview of what it looks like in the back. I think this has a guarantee, a lifetime guarantee, if I'm not mistaken. This box specifically opens to, kind of reveal what's going on, how to use the chain reference system, all these different things like that. You just get some kind of insert, and there's my receipt for when I bought it. which is big time faded out. But I purchased this Bible in June 1st, 2012, Cornerstone Christian Bookstore in Cookeville, Tennessee. I purchased it for half off because they were going out of business. Because Lifeway moved into town and basically run them out of business. So I ended up paying, let's see, I bought some Bible ribbons with it, some other miscellaneous stuff with it. Bible itself, I think I paid half off. So basically the price was $75.99. So half off that's probably about $38, something like that. So I paid $40 for a thumb index Bible. Usually this is what they go for and up. These are definitely, Bibles are definitely worth it. I really enjoy them. They're amazing. Here's what it looks like now. Okay. This is my old Thompson Chain Bible. I've had to, like put packing tape on it and everything. The sides have worn out. Like I said, I've had this Bible since 97. Let's see here. May 20th of 1997, I bought it. So I've had this Bible since 97. And you can tell by the sides that it's nice and well worn, compared to the newer one that I've got. It's getting there. It's not there quite, but it's getting there. The thumb index changed a little bit. Now, this is still the 5th improved edition, like you can see here. But the thumb index changed just a little bit between this one and the one that I purchased back in 2012. I don't know if you can see this or not, but on this one it says index, and it says, you can't really see this, but it says helps down here. And then when you look at this one, you have a Z index and chain index. So they kind of updated that just a little bit. I'm not sure if you can see that very well, but they updated it just a little bit. Nothing much else has changed that I can tell. I mean, they still got the same tabs and everything. Just coincidentally, the gold tabs here that you see, the gold thumb indexes, those designate different parts, different divisions of the Bible. So, for example, Genesis denotes the first 5 books of Moses, the books of the law. Joshua starts working on the history section. Like if you have one of those bookmarks that shows it in little divisions and everything, I may even have one here. Let me see if I've got one where it shows the divisions of the history and things like that. No, I don't seem to have one on me. No, they're not in here. Okay. Anyway, it shows the divisions. Like this gold tab is the history section. This gold tab down here is the Psalms and the Proverbs and the poetical. This is the major prophet section in Isaiah. Hosea begins the minor prophet section. Matthew begins the Gospels. Romans begins the Pauline epistles. James begins the general epistles. And then Revelation is the prophetical at the end. So that's kind of how those are laid out there. And I'm pretty sure everything else is the same as far as where the tabs are located. It looks like they are. But anyway, this is the Bible that I originally had. It is, I mean, worn to frazzle, notes all in this thing. And I wanted to preserve this Bible because I've got so many different notes in different things that I've written myself. I remember James for sure is all written in, and Hebrews, I think, had another good spot here for Hebrews. I love Hebrews. It's probably my favorite book of the Bible. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in there that I marked over. My goal was to actually transfer the notes from this one to this one. It hasn't been working so well. I've only got like maybe through 5 books, and it's just like, man, I don't know if I want to do this or not. I've got all the notes that I need here, so I don't know. But anyway, there's an interesting story about how I actually lost this Bible and actually was able to find it again. And I've actually got that on my Facebook page. I can that real quick and then give you a link in the description area of where that is. Okay, so let me do that real quick. Once again, if you're watching this later on, you can fast forward through this. I'm just going to take just a little bit of time to access that because I meant to do that before and I forgot about it. So let me go over here, and it's going to tell you the story about how I lost my Thompson Chain Bible. See, I bought this one on sale while I had this one. I was going to break this one in gradually because this one's about to fall apart, as you can see. I ended up losing this one, and a week later, miraculously, one of my people that attend the church where I go to called me about it and told me that they found it on the back pew of the church. And that was amazing because I went to the church to look for it and did not find it at all. So that's what is amazing about this. I didn't even see this. I looked on every pew, looked everywhere. I didn't see it anywhere. So ended up being on the back pew of that of the church. So I just thought that was pretty amazing. So let me go over here and add that link here that I've got. I'm going to put it right below the Watch the Review of the King James Study Bible. See the story of how I lost and found my original Thompson Chain Bible here. And it's basically, it is a set of Facebook. It's a Facebook page that you can see the photos of the old one and the new one compared. And also, if you click on the photos, it will tell you the story of how I lost it and found it, basically. So now that's available. I'm going to go ahead and put show item on that one. So now that one is showing in the showcase area of the live event. So if you got any questions, there is a Q&A section below if you're on the event page. If you're watching this live, you can also chat. There's a little place on the left-hand side here where you can click chat and chat with me. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and add the link to where you can purchase your very own Thompson Bible, Thompson Chain. That is now available on the live Hangouts to all who can see it. So let's get into some of this. By the way, the last thing I was going to show you is this is my Bible. This is the newest one that I have. Notice the big Thompson Chain Reference. They added that. And the last thing is the Bible that my dad gave me. Okay, so he's also got a channel on YouTube if you want to check him out. Just look under Tim Beatty, and he's got that one. Now this one is War to Frazzle as well. I don't know when this one was purchased, when he got this one. It's still 5th Improved Edition. I haven't really looked through it that much, but he's got his own style of taking notes, as does everyone. And so I'm guessing especially, he loves Isaiah, so I'm guessing especially Isaiah's probably marked all the pieces. I just saw a Post-it note. He's well known for using Post-it notes and things like that in his own Bible. Yeah, there's one I referenced there, Proverbs. And so Song of Solomon, he underlines things. I just like the way it looks. So in Isaiah, you can see where he's kind of marked that up quite a bit. You know, this is my dad's old Bible. This is like his 3rd or 4th one. You can see where the thumb index fell off, and he wrote it down there what it was. He's got little drawings here. Haven't really had a chance to look through this because I've just looked through mine so many times. And he's got a little note there, but all kinds of different things in Dad's Bible. And I just want to show you that one too. I mean, that one's definitely well worn. Definitely, he had to tape his up a little bit too. So, but anyway, there's that. He's got some stuff in here for notes and stuff. So let's get into the study, okay? I don't know how many minutes it's been, but I just wanted to give you kind of like an overview there. So let's go into the Thompson Chain notes. Now, I wrote these notes back in 2012 when I was actually, began using this one. I thought, Lord, I'm gonna use this Bible now because I lost my other one. I don't want to ever lose it again, so it's staying home. And you can find out more about that if you go to that link that talks about the story behind it as well. So right now I've got one viewer, and it's like I've got a couple people here. Dahlia Ahmed says it's going to watch, and there's another guy that says he's going to watch. I'm not sure exactly who it is, but thank you for everybody watching. I'm expecting my dad to be on here pretty soon. So if not, he can watch it later. But anyway, I've got a bunch of notes that I wrote down back in 2012, and I'm going to kind of go through these and show you how to navigate a Thompson Chain and Thumb Index Bible, and also some study tips. Right now, I've got some things that I've just wrote down for myself, and probably later on, I may end up doing an ebook of this and how to study the Bible together. I've always wanted to do, I've done like little, lessons and things like that. I may end up turning into some kind of course or something like that. So maybe one day, but it's not anything like will happen right now or anything. But anyway, so you have your Thumb Index Bible. and a Thompson chain especially, you know, specifically. Now you can see where I've highlighted different places, and I'm applying these techniques that I'm going to show you in my new Bible, just to show you, you know, how it's much easier to navigate. It looks a lot better when you do it this way. Before, I just used a highlighter and I just took and just highlighted, you know, without reference to anything. Now I use one of those little magnifying glass things, and I lay it down and I write it out and I highlight over it so that it is a straight line, so that you actually have a nice clean line on these highlights and on these notes and everything. And so that was one of the basic tips, is if you want your Bible to look nice and clean and not, you know, just marked all the pieces, use some kind of straight ruled edge. You can get a lot of Bible study writing pens and kits like that that comes with a straight edge ruler. Also comes with one of those little square magnifying glasses. I use that to make a straight edge for any kind of highlighting that I want to do. As you can see, it looks very nice and neat compared to some of my other things where I just went ahead and just whatever. You can see where this is kind of jaggedy and it's kind of, you know, it's not very neat. It's not very nice looking. Now, one thing I want to talk to you about is when you're marking, if you have a Bible, don't be afraid or ashamed to mark in it. A lot of people, my wife even before when we started dating, she was afraid to mark in her Bible, and I don't know why, if she thought it was disrespectful or whatever, but your Bible is there to help you, and it's only going to help you more if you create your own system of study, if you create your own references. There are plenty of reference Bibles out there that have center column references, and this Bible, the Thompson Chain, has plenty of references here to the side. But it will be most beneficial if you find something and you want to make a note of it, make a note of it right there. Say like, well, Proverbs or Psalm 23 over here, the shepherd. Let's say I want to reference it to in the Gospels where it talks about Jesus being the good shepherd. Well, I'll take and make my own reference that way so that I personally can remember that and not have to rely on all the references here. I can, you know, it becomes my Bible. It's more personal that way, you know. So don't be afraid to mark in your Bible. Enjoy, get you some good bleed through. I use zebra highlighters for the most part. They don't bleed through that bad. I mean, they're not too bad here. You can see where they're clearly written here, and then on the other side of the page, they're not bleeding through too bad here. The blue bleeds through quite a bit, the zebra blue pen. So I've been using the green one, and it does just fine. You can use the yellow one. Experiment on this with like a separate page. Like go to the front or go to the back of your Bible and just take just a random page somewhere, and, you know, kind of make a mark with your highlighter and see if it bleeds through on the other side, and do the same thing with a pen. Just make like a straight line, go to the other side until you find a pen that doesn't bleed too bad. What I've been using recently are these Uniball Signo blacks, which are, you know, black mixed with a color. In this case, it's black and blue behind it as well. Hey, Dad. So right now I've got one computer, and I'm going to. I can hear you through your speakers, Dad. I can hear me, so make sure that you got me turned down or something. You still there?
Who?
You?
Yeah, but I don't know how I got here.
Okay, well, you're on here. I'm going to fix the camera here so that everybody can see me and see my camera, what I'm doing. Let's see here.
Can you see me or something?
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you too. You're on the broadcast with me, actually. Let's see.
Well, I don't want to be on here. How do I get off here?
I'm going to fix it to where you won't show through or anything. Let's see here. I'm going to hide your audio and your video, and that should take care of it. Talk to me. See if I can hear you.
Hello, hello.
I can hear you still. Let's see. Broadcast the large video. Let's see my audience. Okay, I see a little button. Let me see if I can do this. Hide from broadcast. Okay. All right, so you're hid from the broadcast now, and nobody can see you. Talk to me. Okay, I can't hear you. So you're here. Nobody can see you. You're fine. Just keep watching. Everything's working just fine. All right. So back to what I was talking about. I've been using these Uniball Signo Blacks pens. They're blacks mixed with another color. They make them in several colors. Here's one with green. They make them with red and purple. There's red and purple. The Uniball pens don't bleed through too bad. So I've been using those. They're a really nice gel pen. They write very nice and smooth. So that's what I've been using. So get you a nice highlighter that will not bleed and some nice pens that will not bleed as well. This is an example of the Blacks pen. On the other side of the page, you can't really see it too bad. It doesn't interfere with the notes that are on this side of the page. It doesn't, make it hard to read. So that's the Blacks pen by Uniball. And I also have plain Uniball pens too. These work just fine as well. The Uniball Signo line is very good. So anyway, let's get back to what I'm talking about here, which is Bible marking and other tools. Here's the first part. Bible marking, I've already talked about that. Let's see here. Long streams of text is very bulky. What I used to do is, and I still do this, I used to take and write out the full name of a person when they, like if they had a message they was preaching or something, I would take and write out the full name of the person, and that ended up being very bulky. Or I would write, the first name and not the last name. And for example, we have on this page, let me find it here. We have on this page, we have down here on verse 16, that star means, I can't see it, the brother Tony P. Then I put down the church name, then I put down the date, and I had a lot of that going on. But nowadays, I just write the initials, and I have a master list in the back somewhere of, let me find it. It's on some of the back, on the back of these Bibles too. You got all kinds of blank pages you can use for extra notes, and I fill the other Bible full of them. So I've got a master list of all the preachers' names, and so when I see RB here, then I know my master list says, well, RB is Randy Bilbrey. So Randy Bilbrey preached at Cornerstone, and I've got that abbreviated. It's very easy for me to understand what that's saying. Cornerstone on the day, and I've got 9/2012. Nowadays, instead of putting 9/2012, I'll actually put down the day, September 9th, or I'll put 9 and /10/12. So I'll do that. Any abbreviations, I have a master list, a legend on the back of these blank pages so that I can find those preachers and don't have to have this long stream of text. So that keeps my Bible looking very nice, and I can still have marginal notes here if I need to. So that's one of the things, is use shorthand to allow for more room and better visibility on your Bible so that you don't have these big, huge sections filled with all kinds of text and everything. For example, here's another example that I've got here. Brother Richard Rollins, here's what I used to write. The whole name, the abbreviation of the church, and the date. Okay. Well, now it becomes abbreviated version of his name. Actually, right now, it would be RR because I've got that other system now. And Richard R or RR. And then I would have the abbreviated church and then the date. So that kind of condenses it down quite a bit. I found that when I write in this, upper lowercase is a question that I have. A lot of people write lowercase, a lot of people write uppercase. I prefer uppercase because it's easier to write since the letters are larger. It's smoother and easier to read, and there's no problems with P's and G's, the tails running into words. Like if you'll see here, the G comes down and the P comes down over here. Well, with uppercase letters, you don't have that problem. So all the notes that I have in my Bible are now uppercase. They're all uppercase, so that I don't have to worry about, the tails of other letters getting in the way. So that's another one. Now, references. The old way of using references for me, as you can tell here, look at this. I've got stars everywhere. I've got star here, star there, star here, star here, star here, star here, all these stars. And then I would come up and say, like, for example, verse 21. Well, in some Bibles, like the King James Study Bible that I've got, they'll have little letters like A, B, C, D for parts of the verse to divide it into little alphabet sections. Then you would go to the center column reference and look at, where that A is, where that B is. And I think I've got an example here on this little bitty Bible that I've got here. For example, let's look at this is just a plain reference Bible. Let's look at Haggai chapter 2, verse 9. Well, verse 9 here, the first thing you see is there's a little B here, and I apologize if the quality is not very good on this camera. Hopefully you can get an idea. There's a B here, and there's a C down here. So they've got a reference to this B over in the center column. So I look for verse 9, and I look for chapter 2, verse 9 down here, and the B tells me to go to John 1:14. And then the C here for peace on verse 9 tells me to go to verse 9, and it's got 3 references for where the C is located. Well, that's what I was doing with my own system here, except each star represented a letter. For example, verse 21, far above, the above would be A because it's the closest to the first part of the verse, so I would look up 21A, and it's right here. So I would say go to John here and all these other references. The second one would be B because it's next to that A, far above all principality, so I would look for 21B, which is right here. Down here, I've got several letters in between this next star, so that this next star I would allow a couple more letters. So I would skip C and D and maybe call this E. And what I did actually was call it F. There's a 21F here. So it's kind of hard to figure that out with just a bunch of stars and letters over here. So what I've now done is I have decided to go ahead and write my own letters in here. So for example, I'm in Isaiah 43, and I'm in chapter 43, verse 11. This is 12. Well, 11's above that. Now I've got an A on beside me. There is no Savior. And I've got my own little B here on Savior. So now I can go exactly to where 11A is and see that reference. And then 11B is below here and see that reference. Okay? So try, when you're doing this, if you do this the way I'm doing it, try to get your A and your B and your C as close as possible, or leave room to put a C later if you think you're going to. Because what I had the problem with is I had an A here, maybe a B would be down here, then I'd have a C, then I'd have an E way down here after I fill in all these other notes, and it just becomes big time disorganized. So try to get all your A's and C's and your B's and everything together that relates to a certain verse. Or instead of doing this method, you can do like the Thompson Chain does and write your verses right next to, beside the verse that you're looking at. So in this case, I would be writing references up here would relate to either verse 12 or verse 11. And back down here, I would write something down in here that would relate to verse 11. Up in here, they've kind of got it filled in for verse 10, so I'd have to come above that. Notice there's all kinds of little space here for you to put your own notes in the side margins. So definitely utilize that. So the old way was using asterisks, little stars, for whole portions of the verse like the A, B, and C. The new way, consider using a star for the whole verse. In other words, I would put a 5-pointed star for to reference the whole verse, and then I would just put letters to reference individual portions of the verse. Okay, so for example, if I was to do this, John 3:16. I don't know why I put 13 there. I guess it was for something else. But here's an example. I would put a star beside the whole verse and reference that somewhere else on the margin, and then I would divide that up. God so loved, God's love would be referenced in verse A. The whole world, the world would be referenced to B. That He gave, well, maybe some other gifts from God would be referenced here on the C. So I would split those up like that instead of putting a star between each one or an asterisk. So there you go on that. So these notes are kind of disorganized, but as I say, I'm going to run through these as quick. What I really want to do is get to the meat of this, and that is how to navigate using the thumb index. Okay, so I'm going to take a moment here to look at my notes here. Let's see here. Some things you can do, like if you want to write notes, what I was actually writing here is, instead of writing the minister's name right next to the verse, and then circling the verse to let you know what it happens. Sometimes I don't have room here, so I have to put their name up here. And I wrote a note to myself, consider doing this, like circling this, and then using the very end of the book, like for the end of Isaiah, you've got all this space here. And consider going, okay, this circled note, what is that reference to? So let's go back here, and then I would have verse 18 down. Oh, well, so-and-so preached verse 18 here on this last page where there's room for notes. Now, the only problem with that is you got to make sure that at the end of the book there's room for notes. Like in the end of Lamentations, there's not much room here. You go back to Jeremiah, and there's a little bit of room here. So there's also room at the end of each book for writing notes. You just got to make sure the way that you want to do it. Just one thing I want to do when we get into this is all the different places that there are available for writing different notes. And that's really important so that you don't have to write them and do them all in the margin. You'll have like central locations for all these notes that you can have. Okay, so, but you always need to check first to make sure there's room at the end of a book before you do any kind of system like that. If you want to make it cleaner and put all these references in the back of that book. Okay, so let's see here. And here's just a note of making a list of ministers and abbreviations in the back, like I just showed you earlier, so it's easier to write it down here and not make so much of a where. All right, now here is one that I really like. Is what I just showed you is part of that, and that is I wanted to make a note of pages for recording notes and info. Now, excuse me, if we'll look into my old Bible again, on the back, now this is the part that kind of is slightly Thompson Chain exclusive, and slightly you can use this method with other index Bibles too. Most Bibles have some kind of blank pages in the back. Okay, Thompson Chain Bible has plenty of blank pages after the maps. Okay, so we have all these blank pages here, and there's the map section they've got, and then after that there's some blank pages. Well, you can utilize all these, and I didn't utilize all of them, but you can definitely use them for your own gain. See here, now we're talking about pages for recording notes and info. Okay, so you got the very back pages. I use these for preacher abbreviations. I use these for names of God. I'd mark that up here if it was notes or if it was names of God. Over here, I've got a bunch of quotes that I like that I've listed over the years. Many pages. There's Q8 means 8 pages of quotes here. Okay, so I've got plenty of pages of quotes here for all kinds of encouragement, motivation, religious themes. Some that I did, some that others did, and I ended up going past page 8 and had some more over here, so I ended up continuing it. Quotes page number 10, and I decided, well, this is my last page of quotes 9 and 10. And then on the other, there's still more pages that say notes here, so there's all kinds of pages that say notes. Now this one was for actual notes that I used, that I could write some notes in my old Bible directly after the map section. And usually what I would do is I would put a N right next to the verse, like say if I had a note, let's see, let me go ahead and find one here. How about we do page 3, let's do 2 Corinthians 10, 12 through 18. 2 Corinthians 10, 12 through 18. There's an N right here. I don't know if you can see that. There's an N right in front of that verse. Now, later on, I would put a number next to that to let me know which page that note was on. Because after you get all these notes, it's kind of hard to weed through them and figure out where they're at. So I would put like N, this is page 3, so I put N3. So that note is found that I wanted to do here on page 3. So I made my own little reference system too. So you can do that. There's probably an example of that somewhere else, but like if I wanted to go to N4, those are the more recent notes, N4, N5. Let's go to N5 and let's see what we can find here. Galatians 3 and 8. Here's a note I made about the gospel being preached in the Old Testament. Galatians 3 and 8. Now, that blew my mind when I read that, but it's there. Galatians 3:8. And here it is. There's an N5 there. So that tells me it's on page 5 of my notes in the back here, okay? So, and the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the heathen through faith, preached before the gospel unto Abraham, saying, in thee shall all nations be blessed. The gospel preached in the Old Testament. So I definitely wanted to make a note of that, and I put that back here in page 5. So I've got N for notes, 5 for the page, okay? And I don't think this is very clear up here in this camera, but that's the best I can do with what I have, so apologize for that. So, okay, so we have the back pages, and this is the same in just about every every Bible, not just including Thompson Chain. So there's the back page, and there's also the front pages. Okay, so the front pages, we have all kinds of blank things. There's some important dates that I've written here, and then you got some more pages if you want to write anything on those. Okay, so you got the back and the front, and that's the same. And now if I look at my newer Thompson Chain, I'm not sure if it's got that many note pages in the back or not. In the back, right directly after the map. Now the maps are kind of a harder paper than they used to be. So on the back, I've got a couple pages for notes that I've started on, but they're the harder pages. They're not like the Bible thin Bible pages like that. There's not as many of the back pages here in this one as there was in the previous Thompson Chain. There's one thing that says notes, and there's another one that says notes. And after that, the rest of it you can kind of just make your own notes as you need to. At the beginning, we have the beginning and the end of the pages. The end of each book, okay? End of each book has, like I just talked about, most of them have all this blank space that you can utilize for note taking, okay? So if we go to the end of Colossians, here's all this blank space. The end of 1 Thessalonians, here's all this blank space, and I've actually utilized some of this for note taking. You can use that. You can use this to like maybe summarize the book, or for general notes about the book, or if you just run out of room, or if you just find something else that relates to that book, you can put that in this little section behind the page. Now notice, here's what I was talking about earlier. 2 Thessalonians doesn't have a whole lot of room for writing notes, okay? So you just want to be careful if you're going to do anything, you know, that relates to some portion of the book and doesn't have a lot of room in the back if you want to put notes in the back. So some of these have more space than others. Just depends. Timothy, 1 Timothy has a lot of space. 2 Timothy has almost a whole page full of places where you can write notes. So you can take and do that. If other Bibles are like this, laid out like this, you can do that with your Bible too, if it has a room like that. So like if I get just another Bible that I've got here, let's go to the end of Jeremiah. And in this case, there's not a lot of room because they stack them on top of each other. So not all Bibles will be like that, but for like I said, this is mainly for the Thompson Chain Bible, but some of these things and tips you can use with other thumb index Bibles. So here's another place for taking notes, which is the back of the book. Each book, the back of the Bible and the front of the Bible has empty places for taking notes. The very last page after Revelation. Now let's look at what that looks like here. If I go to Revelation in Thompson Chain Bible, and I go to the very last page after Revelation, here's the end of Revelation, the end. The very last page is blank. So I can use that for all kinds of note taking, especially if it's Revelation. I want to maybe write out my thoughts on Revelation or my thoughts on prophecy or anything related to Revelation, anything like that. I can use that very last page for note taking. In my older Bible, what I used that page for was, I think it's Bible comparisons or something like that. Or no, soul winning. What soul winning is all about, carrying. And so I wrote all kinds of verses in here about soul winning. Soul winning in 10 easy steps. All these verses that deal with soul winning. And what I would do with this, just like I did with my my notes page, I would put N1, N2, N3, you know, notes that tells you what page it was on. For any kind of verses like this, like these that you see here, I would write down SW next to the verse to let me know that it's a verse that's included in the soul winning section, but I would have to remember that that comes after the very last page of Revelation in my Thompson Chain Bible. So that's what I would have to remember to do. So if you have a Thompson Chain Bible, the very last page in Revelation is blank. You know, after you turn the page, that's a good place for taking notes. Now don't forget, you want to get a pen that doesn't bleed through too much. Now look, there's a lot of writing on here. This is definitely, this and this is a different type of pen because you can see they're darker. This was a lighter pen. So let's see how that looks on the other side. One of them bled through quite a bit. You can see them, you know, kind of writing here. And so that's just a risk you take, but it's still, like I said, it makes the Bible more personal. You can have and access everything you need for your personal reference if you just do this. And if you want to, I don't recommend using pencil because it can fade, it can smear. Just try to find you a good pen that does not smear. Most of the time it'll be a ballpoint pen. Some gel pens will bleed, not smear, I meant to say bleed. Some gel pens will bleed, Usually a ballpoint pen was what you would want to use for anything with lengthy notes like this. So that's another page. Another page you can use for taking notes is at the, and I'm going to compare these. Like I said, I can go back and forth and kind of show you the differences here. Another one that you can use for taking notes is at the beginning of your concordance. So if you go to the concordance section, this little tab here, you got your concordance section, beginning of concordance. Right here. You turn the page and it's blank. You can use all this for notes. Okay? I did the same thing over here, went to the concordance thumb index down here and flipped it, and then turned the page. There's a whole blank page here for taking notes. Okay? These are some things that nobody really thinks about because, I mean, this is just something I came up with just one day, just sitting down and trying to think of all the things I've learned in 15 years of using the Thompson Chain Bible. And like I said, one of these days I may make just an ebook on this because this is, you don't never hear about this. So you can use the beginning of the concordance, and that's really easy to find with thumb index because it's already there on your thumb index. It's right there. You hit it, you let it go, and you turn the page. Bam! You've got all these places for taking notes right here. Another place is at the end of the index tab, which, like I said on the previous, says helps. If you've got the old types of Thompson Chain Bibles, it'll say helps here, and that's where the actual text and condensed encyclopedia of all the little Thompson chain numbers begins. That's where that happens. If you go to your help section and open that, right there is a whole page for taking notes. And even after the main index of everything listed, there's a whole section here that you can use for blank pages. Let me show what that looks like in this one. I go on the newer tab section. It says A to Z index. I hit that and I let it go. And oh, actually, it's chain index. Go to chain index. That's where the helps usually is. Chain index. Let it fall. There's your blank page. And then before that, there's some more spots right here. So what I did is I used this section for the Modern Bible version comparisons, where it talks about how there's missing verses in the modern versions, attacks on virgin birth, attacks on the blood, attacks on Christ in the flesh, attacks on Lucifer being the Son of God, attacks on the devil's prayer, different things like this. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to av1611.org. That's where I got a lot of these references from. Modern Bibles Exposed, I used this whole section. There's over 6,000 documented changes in the New Testament alone. The devil takes away the word. The Bible talks about the devil taking the word away, and the Bible says in Deuteronomy, Proverbs, and Revelation, do not add and do not take away from the word. So there's all kinds of things. That's not what this broadcast is about, but there's all kinds of things about that you can look up on AV, stands for Authorized Version, av1611.org. Okay, so now this is where I was going to kind of continue that, but I never got around to it before I switched to my new Thompson chain. But yeah, there's another page that you can use for notes. So that, once again, is by going to, depending on which thumb index version you have, you go to either chain index or helps, hold it, let it fall, and there's your page of notes. Okay, so let's see. I think we've got a few more of these, different places to more obscure pages for note taking. At the end of the text encyclopedia, which is this thing right here, where all the numbers begin for the thing there. So at the end of the text encyclopedia, let's see, let me find it here. It tells me page 1582. Okay, that's where it becomes, before it becomes another section. So if I go to 1582, now these are obscure because they're not really easily found by using the thumb index like I was just doing there. 82. Now notice it's split it up. You got the topics in the text, and then after you go so far, it ends, and you've got special Bible readings for private devotions and public services. Now this is where it runs out of the alphabet. We got the R's here, we go all the way to the W's, and then we got this. And then I think this goes just a little bit further. I think actually before that, Yeah. Before that division, there's another one called the addenda, and that's on page 1563. Well, the addenda is more notes that they didn't have room to put in when they first did all these, I think. It'll explain there what that is, but the addenda starts on page 1563. Then after that, you get to a special Bible reading section on page 1571. The other place that's obscure that you can take notes is page 1582, which is after the end of all those, the numbers section. Okay, all these different numbers you see on 4216, before it gets into the charts and stuff with these numbers. Here's a blank page for taking notes here if you want to do that. Okay, so that's one of them. It's before number 4219 on page 1582. Okay, so you can do that. Another obscure place is go to 1588. So flip a few pages over, and it talks about this is the end of the English Bible versions. Well, here's the English versions. You go to page 1588. Here's another spot for taking notes. Here's another blank page. Okay, so these are just little other places that you wouldn't have thought about that you can put. You know, you can have all this white space for taking your own notes. Another place is the end of the condensed outlines of the Bible. That's page 1593. So I'll continue going. Here's the condensed outlines, the Old Testament and the New Testament condensed outline. And right here's the end. So here's another place that's blank that you can use white space for taking notes. Okay, and that's page 1593. End of the analysis. So if I go to where the character studies are, here's the analysis of the books of the Bible. Here's the analysis, the book of Genesis, the book of Leviticus, and on, and you go through the Gospels, through the New Testament, and these are all the in-depth outline analysis of the books. So it's the end of that, and also the end of, here's Revelation, the end of that goes directly into the character studies. So now we have character studies, where we have Noah, Abraham, Jacob, a bunch of different things. When you go past this, to the end of the character studies, the last one is Daniel, and then all of a sudden we have blank space again. So here's another place that you can use for taking notes, okay? And that is page 1647. That's at the end of the analysis of the books and the character studies, okay? Another place that you can take notes that allows you for white space is the memory verses section, and that is page 1712. So I'll go over a few pages and go to page 1711, 1712, memory verses. I utilize this one to put my own memory verses that I wanted to memorize, and I pretty much fill that up. So I go to page 1712 in my 1997 one, and this is what you have. You've got all these other verses that I wanted to have my own little memory verse section here. So you've got all these memory verses up here, and then I can create my own. So it only makes sense for me to utilize this area for notes that relate to what it says up here, which is memory verses. Okay, so obviously the other pages, like the end of the character studies, you might want to use the end of the character studies to write down your own character studies, because it doesn't go over every single character in the Bible. It just goes over some of the most prominent ones. Okay, so if I went back here to page 1647, like say I wanted to know about Ezekiel, but Ezekiel is not listed here, and I wanted to write down all these kind of other things I wanted to remember about him, I would put Ezekiel, and I would write down all his own things. So consider using these blank spaces that I've been showing you for writing notes related to what the section that comes before it is, whether it's character studies or whether it's, you know, condensed outlines of the Bible that we talked about earlier. Maybe you want to, or not condensed outlines, but other Bible versions, the end of the text encyclopedia. Consider using the area of notes for what it's relating to before that. Another place that you can go to is the Bible marking section, which is one page over. Here's Bible marking. Right after that, you can flip the page, and here's a blank page here. Now, obviously, this is related to Bible marking, so I put my own symbols here that I ended up never really using, but I put my own symbols here for what I was going to use in my Bible study to help me remember certain things. So now the ones that are in darker blue I did use, like SW was for soul winning verses, like I told you a while ago. GC is, I had a Bible journal I kept for the longest that I called Golden Chapters, or actually, no, this is something to do with listed in the golden chapters list. Well, actually, that's back to where the memory verses are. Some of that has to do with golden chapters and things like that. Golden chapters in the Bible, and that's on page, let's see, 1707. Well, if I said, if it's GC, and like say, for example, here's law in Exodus 20. If I was reading Exodus 20, I would put GC to let me know, hey, that's listed in the golden chapters. So that's another way that I utilize this last part, is to make my own Bible symbols, my own Bible markings, and this was kind of like a legend for that. Okay, so then we got, I think, one more, which is the end of the archaeological section. Now, if you go to the archaeological section, let me show you an easy way to get to this. Let me get my other one out. Let me go ahead and close this up. And every Thompson Chain Bible has an archaeological tab here. If you'll go to the end of that, the end of it, you can either go and start and then start flipping to get to the end. The way I prefer is to go backwards. I go to the concordance, which is the next section, and then at the end of the archaeological section, if you go a few pages back, and there it is. The end of the archaeological section, the very last thing is Zora and a list of illustrations that were used, which is different illustrations like the different photographs and different things like that were used. All these is a list, it's basically credits for all the photographs. And at the end of that, that's another blank page, okay? So those are the obscure pages for taking notes that are not really easily found by going back and forth and using thumb index and things like that. So that's another place you can take notes. Here's a little thing that I wrote down. With all the possibilities for note taking, consider creating an index or table of contents for notes you intend to take. For example, have your own quotes page, section like I did on my other one. Have your own page for general notes. Have your own section for maybe questions answered that you had always wondered about. Consider creating your own little index for pages and where to locate those. Okay, so the next thing I was going to talk about, the next section is about underlining and highlighting. Okay, now we talked about that just a little bit, and I may be repeating some of the stuff we talked about. Instead of underlining individual words, which makes it jagged, underline the entire phrase. Now, what I used to do is underline, for God so loved the world, for emphasis. But it looks jagged like that. So I decided, well, that becomes for God so loved the world. So it's smoother. It's smoother looking. It looks neater. So consider that. When possible, now I already talked about this earlier, use a mini magnifier for even lines, or some kind of straight edge ruler. Like I told you, you can buy those little square rectangle magnifying flexible things to use. And it's not, most people use it for magnifying, but you can use it for a straight edge. So consider using that for a neater look. Also, if many verses are to be highlighted, use what I call the box method. Now, I'm not sure if I can find one right off the top of my head here. But like I say, I think Hebrews may be one example. Yeah. Well, for example, in my old Bible, here's a lot of verses I want to highlight. Well, instead of having all this ink on the page and highlighting everything, whether it be underlining it or completely highlighting it, then I would take and draw a box around the verses that I wanted to remember, that wanted to stick out to me, and maybe I would highlight one that was the key verse of those. Okay, so, and I even got a key symbol here to let me know that's the key verse, so I would underline that. That's the one that I wanted to do. And so I could have done that here too, but for some reason I didn't. I decided I wanted to underline both of these separately. But sometimes you'll have long sections that you want to highlight, and instead of highlighting everything and making it very highlighter rich, I recommend using just a little box with highlighter on that so that it looks better and it doesn't bleed through a lot. So, because I mean, even with a non-bleeding highlighter, the more ink that you have on the page, it's going to bleed. I mean, it's going to look tacky if you don't do it right. So most of the time I'll use, if it's more than one or two verses, I'll use the box methods. Like, for example, here in Hebrews, in the newer one that I've got, I decided I wanted to highlight verse 12 all the way down to verse 16. Okay, so verse 12, I took and made a little beginning of a box here, and then you can see where the line goes all the way down and connects and ends right here. So I've encased this whole section with a highlighter box. And the key verses that I wanted to remember, I highlighted those. Instead of highlighting this whole section, having all this ink here, so when you flip the page, it's going to be a whole section that's, you know, green on the other side. I decided to use a box method for that. So consider doing that. It takes up too much attention if you have all this highlighter, but if you just put a box there, it's easily referenced and it doesn't take a lot of space. It doesn't take a lot of attention off what's going on. Now, I'm getting to the main part. I've got like a page and a half left, or maybe even less than that. I'm getting to the main part of this, which I wanted to go over, and that is thumb index tricks, okay? So, in navigating a thumb index Bible, this is one of the cool things about thumb index that I love. Most of the people use the thumb index for locating the books, okay? Well, I want to find where Joshua is. Well, it's easy to find it. I just find the Joshua or Joshua tab here, and then I let it fall, and then that's my thumb index. Or I wanted to find, let's say I wanted to find Joel. So here's one for Joel, Amos, and Obadiah. So I open it to Joel, and there it is, okay? Well, the thing is, if you'll notice, a lot of these thumb indexes have more than one book. So what are you going to do when you need to find a book in the middle or at the end? Most of the time, people will take and say, let's go back to Joel again. Joel's got Joel, Amos, and Obadiah. Let's go back to that. Most people will take, okay, let's find Joel, and then we flip forward until we find Amos. And there's Amos, okay? That one was easy because it only has like 2 or 3 chapters. Well, let's go to one that's a little bit different. We got 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, and Galatians, okay? So if we want to get 2 Corinthians, we'll go to 1 Corinthians, open it up, and then begin turning until we get to 2 Corinthians. So we turn, and 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 then there's 2 Corinthians. And if we want to go to Galatians, we turn, and we turn, and we turn, and we turn, until we get to Galatians. Well, here's my strategy on that. Let's go back. 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. I want to get to Galatians, but I don't want to have to go all the way through 1 and 2 Corinthians to get there. Now, this is what you can use on just about any thumb index Bible, okay? So if you have a thumb index Bible that's not Thompson Chain but has the same thing where you got 3 or 4 books on one tab, here's what you do. I want to get to Galatians, right? Or, yeah, I want to get to Galatians, but I don't have to go forward. I want you to think about your thumb index as most of the time we go forward with a thumb index. We locate our tab, and then we start moving forward. I want you to think of a thumb index also as going backwards. If I want to find Galatians, it's the very last book in that 3-book section, the 1st, 2nd Corinthians, and then Galatians, okay? If I want to find that, that's what it looks like. Well, all I have to do to go to the last book is go to the book after that, the thumb index after that. So I will be going to the Ephesians, Philippians, and Colossians tab, and then letting it fall and going backwards. And bam, I'm in Galatians. Okay, there was no going forward. There was no me having to travel through everything to get there. I go to the thumb index after where I want to be if it's the last book in a section, and then I start flipping backwards. And for one thing, another thing is the middle book, here's 2 Corinthians. So I'll do the same thing. Galatians is a short book, so I'll go to the book after Galatians, which is Ephesians, start flipping backwards, and then within like 3 or 4 pages, I'm in 2 Corinthians. So depending on where I'm at, if I'm in one of the later chapters, it will be easier to access it through the book ahead of that. If I'm one of the earlier chapters, it might be easier to access it through going through 1 Corinthians first. Let's give you another example of that. Let's say we've got Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Okay, so here's Haggai. Let's say I want to get to Zechariah. Well, I don't want to have to go through Haggai, so I'll go to Matthew. I'll go to the book after that, let it fall open, and start backtracking, start going backwards. So I'm going to go through Malachi, which is a short book, and now I'm in Zechariah, just like that. Within 3 page turns, I'm there. A lot of it has to do with the book on either side. Which book is, if it's going to be shorter on one side, a short book, or if it's going to be a short book on the front side. It has to do with that, a lot of it. So kind of take that in consideration. If you know Malachi is a short book, then you can go ahead and go to the book ahead of that and start going backwards and then find your way into Zechariah. Obviously, if I wanted to go to the first book, I would go to the first tab. I would go to Haggai through pushing down the Haggai tab and then letting it fall open. But anything after that, I would most likely use the tab after that and start going backwards to find that. Okay, so that's very, very helpful. That's a cool little tip. Think about going backwards instead of forward. Okay. Another one is Philippians, Ephesians, Colossians, which I just did. So if I want to find Colossians, Philippians and Ephesians are fairly short books, but it's still quicker to go to the next tab up, which is Thessalonians, flipping that open and flipping back one page. And I'm in Colossians, just like that. So I hope you can see how handy and helpful that is when you're navigating a thumb index Bible, is to go ahead one or two tabs and then start working backwards to find these easy books. Now, another thing you can do is there are other places in the Thompson Chain Bible specifically that are kind of hard to find unless you use the thumb index. Okay. Now this is where the meat comes in. This is where it gets good. One of those is you go to the index page and you go backwards one page to find the Bible study methods. Okay. Now, for example, let's see which index page it's talking about. I think it's talking about the A to Z index, which is this one. I called it index page because that's what it's called in the older version of this. It says index right there. You go to that page. In this case, the newer one is A to Z index. You click on that. You put your thumb on that index and you let it fall open, and then you're going backwards again. So I think the rest of these notes so far is all about thinking backwards. Okay, not forwards, but backwards. Think about going backwards. Now, you click on that index page. Click. I'm still saying click. You put your thumb on that index page and you work your way backwards. So I'm going to take this and go backwards one page, and guess what? I've got a whole system here of best methods of Bible study, principles of Bible study. Just that little section there is very handy to have. Also, while I'm there, you can go to the A to Z index, flip over one page, and now you've got the comprehensive Bible helps that tells you where everything here is located from this page, this portion of the Bible onward. Okay, because in the Thompson chain, this much is Bible text, and this much is all the notes. So all these chain margin notes and charts and everything and maps are going to be found in this last maybe third of the book. So 1/3 of the book is notes, 2/3 is Bible text. So you find your A to Z index, you go back, and you go back one page. Now, some of you who've been using the Thompson chain for years may notice something here, and that is this page is also located on the front. It's also found, and I make my own notes here too, like on this, also found on page 4, and that's not 4 the number here, but it's the Roman numeral. So it's the very beginning of this. So if you go to page 4, Comprehensive Bible Helps, the same page is located on 2 different spots. This kind of tells you what happens on page 1328. So obviously this is going to happen after all the Bible text, because all the Bible text is before this. 1328, here's 1327. So this is the most logical place to use it. And to find it, like I said, you go to the A to Z index tab, or the index, whichever one it says on yours. Open that up, and then turn backwards one page. And now you can figure out where everything is located from this point on the last third of this Bible. Like I said, 2/3 of this Thompson chain is Bible text. 1/3 of it is notes. So you know what's on the notes page now. You can find your Bible character studies. You can find your harmonies. You can find all the different journeys of people. You can find, there's all kinds of things like there's a little chart of the Messianic stars, chart of the Temple of Truth, footprints of Jesus. Everything is located after this page. Okay. All right. So you got your regular index. You got your numbers, the different numbers of the Bible, and then past that you got all the charts, and it shows you where all that stuff is here. The general index, where all the numbers are, is right here, and after that is when you're going to get into about 1500. Page 1571 is after all these different pilot numbers, what they call it in the Thompson chain, the pilot number section. That's where you're going to get into your charts, into your maps and diagrams, golden chapters of the Bible, stuff that we kind of went over with already. That's where we're going to get into that. Okay, so that's the next tip. And that was to locate the comprehensive Bible helps and the best methods and principles of Bible study. Okay. Now, another one you can do is go to the helps or the chain index system right here. Chain index, and on older versions of the Thompson chain, thumb index wise, it'll say helps. You can go to that one and go back one page for a blank page of note taking. Now, this relates to what I was talking about earlier for pages for note taking. You can find those by using the thumb index. So, once again, these thumb index tips are all related to going backwards, not forwards. Chain index or helps, let it fall open, and right here is your page for taking notes. Okay, that's an easy way to find a place for taking notes. Here's another cool little section. You can go to the archaeological tab. This was this one right here, the next to the last tab. Let that fall open and go back a few pages, and you can locate useful study tools and places for religious worship. Like there's a places for religious worship is right here. You got your altar, you got your tabernacle, you got Solomon's temple, you got the other temples here, Hebrew festivals, times and seasons. You got another outline of Herod's temple and all the different courts and things like that. So go to the archaeological section and start working your way backwards, where you can find all kinds of tips. Like here's the places for religious worship. We go back a little further. We got aids to memorization. We got Bible marking section, which I talked about was another place to write notes. You got your memory verses. Keep going backwards. You got your Christian worker's outfit. Here's another place for good soul winning ideas. Keep going backwards, and you got the topical treasury for practical helps for youth, young people, and Christian workers generally. So you got all kinds of topics for like the I Ams of Christ, the thought meal, men's meetings, business success and conditions of, and it tells you exactly what number it is, not the page number, but the number in the pilot system, in the number these numbers right here. Okay, so in other words, go to your archaeological section and start flipping backwards, and you'll find a lot of the cool helps. Like I told you before, when you go to the chain index and you flip back one page, a lot of this stuff that I'm telling you right now that's listed here can be found by going to the archaeological section and flipping backwards. Most of the time, it's going to be from here on down. So from like the last quarter, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4, the last quarter of this, instead of having to go all the way forward to find it, you can start going to the archaeological section and going backwards to find a lot of this stuff. Like we're already up to the golden chapters of the Bible, and that's right about here, okay? Here's a cool little chart. Approximate distances of various places from Jerusalem. When you hear about Jesus going into Samaria, he must needs go into Samaria. You hear about Jesus going through Galilee. Well, from Jerusalem, how many miles is it to Samaria? Well, that's 35 miles. He walked 35 miles, okay? To Jericho from Jerusalem is 15 miles. To Jericho from Nazareth is 70 miles. Sea of Galilee, Capernaum, 90 miles. And he was there many times. So from Jerusalem, that's a 90-mile trip. Okay, so that's a really cool chart. And here's a cool little chart on the prodigal son, the different steps to his downfall and then his reconciliation. So all kinds of cool tips. If you just go to that archaeological tab and start working your way backwards, you can find a lot of cool stuff in your Thompson Chain Bible. All right, so now the one thing that's very important to know about the Thompson Chain Bible is it has its own dictionary of what they call archaic words, or words that are kind of out of date that we don't use anymore. And it's important to find those terms in a dictionary rather than turning to modern Bible translations, because they don't just change these and thous. They don't just make it easier to read, which they don't. They do a lot of other stuff, cut and paste, and basically have a Bible full of holes instead of a holy Bible. If you're going to study the Bible, you don't need somebody to spoon feed it to you, okay? You need to study it to show thyself approved, okay? Study it for yourself. Take the time necessary to run references, to look up concordance words in your concordance so you can kind of see what the meaning of the words is based on several verses that use the same word. Or in this case, they have their own dictionary so that you can go to the back and find it. And the easiest way to find it, I want you to notice, like, for example, I just found something here. In Joel, you'll find this number in your mind. Write it down or just remember it or something. Whenever you see the number 4452, 4452, just remember that that is a dictionary reference, a number that references the dictionary, okay? Your dictionary, your old obsolete words such as garner, okay? Maybe I don't know what garner means. Well, where's 4452? Instead of having going through all these numbers up here, now it's talking about the number here, not the page number, but the number that's references. It's time to go all the way through here and try to locate 4452 and all that. All you have to do to find the dictionary in the Thompson Chain Bible, the built-in dictionary, when you see 4452, is go to the concordance tab and once again flip backwards. Right there is my dictionary. This is my dictionary of all the words. So if I wanted to find that word garner in Joel, I just go here to the G, and it says garner is a granary or a storehouse. Okay, so anytime you see number 4452, and here's where that comes from. There's the number right there. An abbreviated glossary of Old English, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek words from the King James Authorized Version of the Bible with present-day meanings. So there's no need for a new translation, people. Just get a good dictionary, and they'll tell you what it means. Study this stuff for yourself. I call the new translations for lazy Christians. I'm just going to be upfront with you right now. People are so lazy nowadays. They want people to spoon feed them these techniques and these ideas and everything and the word, and they don't go home and read it themselves. They leave the Bible on the benches from Sunday to Sunday, and they wonder why they don't have any power with the Lord, don't have any understanding of the word. Study the word with the author of the word, and that is God himself. Pray, ask the Spirit's guidance, and you will understand the word. The first prerequisite is being born again, and then you'll understand how to read the Bible. Okay, that's just point blank. Do not be a lazy Christian and fall for this trickery of people saying, oh, it's easier to read. We only took out so-and-so things that were obsolete. Get a good dictionary if you don't know what something means. Don't trust somebody else's word for God's word, okay? Anyway, that's my rant on that. 4452 is your dictionary, okay? So if you find a word you don't know what it means and it says 4452, or if you find a word you don't know what it means anyway, come back to your concordance tab. Once again, in context of all the other tabs. Concordance tab, dictionary, okay? All this is your dictionary. Okay, and if you go back to your concordance tab and start flipping backwards, before this dictionary, or in this case, they call it a glossary. Before this glossary, if you turn one page over, you've got a Hebrew calendar. This is very cool for understanding times and festivals and seasons and things like that. That's located directly after the archaeological something. This is something that's kind of hidden here. It's kind of inserted here. Some things you will learn by finding it out on your own and by just going years, like I said, over 15 years of studying the Thompson Chain Bible. Some things you find out just accidentally like this. Little nuggets and little, what they might call Easter eggs, you know, like in a video game or in a movie. Little nuggets that you didn't know was there. So if you'll go back to, like I said, your concordance tab, flip back to the first part of the glossary or the dictionary, flip over one more page, and you have this kind of like a hidden section here on the Hebrew calendar. All the different festivals, all the different, you know, like the Feast of the Passovers here, the Feast of Trumpets, all these different festivals and feasts, what season it's in, what the wind and the weather was like, what the state of the country was like, and the English months that we use today. That's a good place to find that. So that's the last part of navigating using the thumb indexes, okay? This next section is just going to be some cool little miscellaneous section here that's really helpful as well. So I invite you to stay tuned for this. Once again, if you haven't done it already, and this is taking a lot of time for you, you can use that little icon here on the bottom part. This is hard to do. The camera's reversed on me. The bottom part right here on the right-hand side of your YouTube video player. Click that little wheel if you're watching this pre-recorded later. Click that little gear icon and change the speed to like 1.5 or 2 times, and you can watch this much faster. I mentioned that at the first of this, but for those of you that weren't watching later, if you want to watch this, you can find it at the end. Okay, so the last section here, and then we're going to wrap it up, is the use of Post-it notes. Now, Post-it notes are amazing. Every time I use a Post-it note, I've never found where I had to, when I pulled it up, that it removed some of the text. Most of the time, it won't do that. So let me just get a random Post-it note here. And start using it. So like for one thing, if I just take this and move it on here and I pull it up, now don't jerk it up, okay? Just gradually pull it up really nice. These pages are very tender. There's nothing on this side. It doesn't pull up the ink or anything like that, okay? So don't be afraid of that. So now I don't know what it'll do after years of sitting there. It might pull the ink off after years, so always remember to remove them if you don't need them. So Post-it note ideas. Use Post-it notes not only for writing notes and verses and sermons and lessons, but also to easily make new thumb indexes. Now, before I get there, yes, you can create your own thumb indexes with Post-it notes, and it's very cool. Before I get there, I want to show you something. Use Post-it notes like if you got a bookmark. A lot of times this happens to me. Instead of writing down what I was trying to bookmark, I mean, you've got 2 pages of verses. How are you going to remember what you wanted to bookmark? Well, all you have to do is take a Post-it note, put it down here, and say, well, the bookmark is for so and so, verse this, verse that, whatever. And so you can use that for any kind of notes that you want to do related to a bookmark. And as I say when I talk about studying the Bible, I don't recommend using any more than 5 bookmarks at a time because it gets very confusing. What I've done is I've numbered my own bookmarks, and then I'll use those according to the number. Like here's number 4. I've got 1 through 5, and then the other ones are just for spares if anything happens to the other ones and I need to use these. But no more than 5 bookmarks because it gets very confusing if you don't do that. And I usually just keep my bookmarks in the back where I flip to the archaeological section. I just usually keep it right there. That's just where I found a good place to keep them. It doesn't interfere with anything else. There's really no reason for me to have bookmarks there, so I'm not going to be confused as to, well, why are these bookmarks here? I just keep 4 or 5 of them in here at all times, and that way I can go back and use them if I need to. So you can use the Post-it notes for notes for relating to your bookmarks, okay? And like if you have 5 bookmarks, you can use 1 Post-it note and write down all 5 spots that you were trying to bookmark, and that way you don't have to Post-it note on each one, unless you just need one like that. So you can use it for your notes, your verses, lessons, anything you want to. But here's how you make a thumb index with a Post-it, and this is very cool. Okay, I'm going to do this several times because it's kind of hard to explain it. But if I'm taking notes in Nehemiah 13, let's just go to Nehemiah 13. This is just an example I got wrote down for no reason at all, I guess. So here's Nehemiah. Now here's another thing. Here's how you find it. You can either go forwards or backwards. Esther is 8 chapters long. Ezra is like 12. So it just makes sense that I need to go backwards 8 chapters. Okay, so let me double check that. How many chapters does Ezra have? It's got 10. I was 1 off. Ezra has 8, so it's going to be about the same either way, depending on the length of the chapter. So I can either go forwards through Ezra or go backwards using the Job and then start going backwards through Esther to find Nehemiah. Well, I'm trying to find Nehemiah chapter 13. So that's closer to the end of the book, which makes sense for me to go from the back side of it because it's going to be closer to the end. So I'm going to go through Esther, and then right there is Nehemiah chapter 13. Let's say I'm taking notes. Now, once again, I'm talking about how to create your own thumb indexes using a Post-it note. If I'm taking notes in Nehemiah 13, then what I would do is I would use my Post-it note, place it on the right side of the page, sticking out just over the tab for the next set of books. In other words, I am taking notes and I want to come back to Nehemiah instead of using a bookmark, or if I need my own thumb index for some reason, temporary thumb index. What I do is I'll take and put my Post-it note to the right side of the page over the thumb index for the next set of books. The next set of books is right here. It's Job and Psalms. So what I would do is I'll take and put this Post-it note, line it up with that thumb index, and then press it down. And now all I have to do is close it. Now look at this. I've just made my own thumb index. Okay? So now all I do is place my finger over that Post-it note, and look where I'm at. Right back in Nehemiah 13. That's where I wanted to be. You can do this with just anywhere that you can think of. Let's say I'm just going to do another random place. Let's say I'm just going to open this to wherever it falls, okay? So I've got Jeremiah 44. Totally random. And let's say I want to get back to that. Instead of using a bookmark, I can take a Post-it note. And it doesn't even have to be, well, it needs to be a sticky one so that it stays in place if you're shifting the Bible around. So I recommend the sticky ones. All I do is I place it over the next set of tabs. The next set of my tabs is Ezekiel and Daniel. So I take and place this over. Let me do this over here where you can see what I'm doing. Ezekiel and Daniel is right here. I'm going to take and place my Post-it note right over that. And then press it down. Close my Bible. Now remember, we're in Jeremiah 44. Press it down, close it. Now I've got three. If you look at this, it looks like I got three thumb index. And it doesn't really matter which one I press, because if I press this one here, or this one here, it's still going to open up Jeremiah. You definitely usually want to press it on the one that's the less gap here. See how much the space is between that? Because then you're pressing down on space, and it's kind of harder to get to that thumb index. You want to press on the one that's the least gap. So I press on this one, and now I'm back in Jeremiah 44:1. Okay? It's not magic, folks. It's common sense and logic. I don't know how I discovered this. This is something I came up with all on my own. I don't know. I just maybe I accidentally did it and found it out. This is one of the most important things that you can use on a thumb index Bible. Now, obviously, you can do this if you don't have a thumb index Bible. All you have to do is find out where you want to study, put your Post-it note just like this, and there's your bookmark. It's basically a bookmark on the side of the book like this, as opposed to the top of the book where you would close it and have a bookmark up here. It's basically a bookmark for the side. But with a thumb index, you don't have to worry about it sticking out and jutting out. You just place it over where you're going to study, over the next tab, which is in this case Hosea. And I'm going to line it up, put it down there. Ezekiel. Close that up. Next time I need to access it, I go to the one that has the least amount of gap to it, and I click on that one, or not click on it, but you know what I mean. Press it down, and there I'm back in Ezekiel 16. So that's how you make your own Post-it notes using, or your own thumb indexes using Post-it notes. All right. If you get nothing else out of this, I hope that right there was worth the whole show, because that is an awesome, awesome feature, an awesome, cool thing. I think the best part about this whole broadcast is going to be your obscure pages for taking notes, how to use your thumb index for thinking backwards instead of forwards, and creating your own thumb index. There's only a few more things here we got, just this little whole section, and we're done. Okay, the last couple things is always keep at least 2 Post-it notes stuck together. Here's what I do. Always keep at least 2 Post-it notes stuck together at the beginning of your Bible, because this helps you jot down verses to remember that need to be highlighted later if you don't have your highlighter handy. So I can write down my verse and say, okay, here's my verse. Next time I have a highlighter, I just go find this, and then I just highlight it. Or I can use this. I can have my Post-it notes available here. Now I've got 3 or 4 of them stuck together, and I can use these for the notes that I was talking about as far as like your bookmarks. Okay, so I can bookmark something, go back here, find a Post-it note, put it in the place where my bookmark was, and say, well, this bookmark is for this, you know. So that's one thing that's really cool about having Post-it notes available to you. Post-it notes basically are portable notes. I mean, yes, you have places in your Thompson chain where you can write notes, like the beginning of, you know, like I talked about, you know, the beginning pages, like all these blank pages and all these other places we talked about. But if you need notes to move around, then that's what Post-its are for. Okay, Post-its are your friend. And you can use those kind of Post-its, and you can use these little flag Post-it type things. I recommend using just the full-size Post-its. You can, you know, whatever color works for you. Here's some kind of neon-looking yellowish green color. Just whatever works for you, and just keep 2 or 3 of them in here. Obviously, if you keep a big pile of them, you're going to have a big indentation in your Bible here. So only keep about 2 or 3 at the most. And the last thing I've got, I think, for this is, instead of writing, this is something for my own thing. Usually, if you'll see a parallel verse, it'll say PP for parallel passage, parallel verse. And then you'll just write next to that parallel passage the verse of the thing. Well, instead of putting all these extra symbols and all these extra other things, like some Bibles, like the King James Study Bible, uses the abbreviation CF, which somehow means compare. So you would put CF, compare this with something else. Instead of doing that, just write the chapter and the verse. Like if I'm in Numbers and if I want to write down, compare this with John 3:16, or Numbers. If I'm in the same book, then I would say 9:25. Compare this with Numbers 9:25. Instead of writing down Numbers, I would just write the chapter, because it's going to be in the book that I currently am in. If I was doing a different book, then I would write down the name of the book, abbreviated, like John would be JN, and then 3:16. So instead of putting down the extra fancy stuff like parallel passage, compare, or writing the entire book for the book that I'm in, I'm just going to put down the number, the chapter number, and the verse number, because there's no need to write down the book if that tells me that it's going to be in the same book that I'm already in. Okay, or you can even write down if it's in the same chapter and I want to compare verse 31 to 35, I'll put down here V35. In other words, compare this to verse 35 down here. Okay, so you can put it either after the verse right now that you're trying to reference or on the margin. So it's up to you. So thanks so much for tuning in today. I think it's been about an hour and a half. Yep, about an hour and a half broadcast. What I'm probably going to do as far as the notes and the description area for this, I'm just going to list the thumb index tricks. The post-it note was kind of self-explanatory. It'd be hard to kind of write down what that means, so just go back for reference on that. But I would like to put down the thumb index tricks for locating books and locating different sections like your glossary or your other practical help. So I may put that in the descriptive area. Like I said, one of these days, this will be probably good material for an ebook. But I'm probably going to write down just the thumb index tricks in the description area if you need reference to that. The rest of it you can kind of get off this video. But I've been wanting to do this for a couple of weeks ever since I got that King James Study Bible, which I absolutely love. I'm still enjoying it. I actually preached out of it for the first time yesterday. It was kind of weird because I'm so used to this one. But you can go back and see the comparison between that Bible and the Thompson Chain as far as the dimension. This Thompson Chain is a little bit wider than the King James Study Bible, but I still love my Thompson Chain. It's still got plenty of, like I said, a third of it is all notes. So, I mean, you got charts and different things like that. It's really cool. One more tip I will give you on this that I found out just yesterday while looking for something is this is just a little bonus tip. Where it talks about earlier, where it talked about the analysis of the books, found something I didn't know was in here. And the more you study this, the more awesome it becomes. And that is, if you just go to the outlines of the books, you'll find something every now and then that stands out as just like a little section there. Most of the time it'll say, like, for example, the book of Genesis here. You've got your book of origins, where it came from, or the main theme is, your keyword, and then the synopsis. Okay, prominent names, 5 great spiritual characters, lesson of the ages, different things like that. That's to be expected. But then all of a sudden, I found, just by totally accident, when I was looking at the book of Exodus here, this little section, and I highlighted it so that I can remember it next time. The pilgrimage of Israel, a type of the Christian life. Right there is an idea for a message. Right there is an idea for good Bible study. I never even thought about that. And then it goes on to list all the different ways that Israel's pilgrimage is just like a Christian life, at what a Christian goes through in life. So even in the outlines of the books, there might be some cool little, titles like this contained within the book. I haven't even looked to see if there's any more, but if you're going, this is an example of me going to this section for what it's designed for and finding a little bonus area for that. So that was really, really cool. I thought it was awesome. I'm not sure if there's any more of them like that, but if you just go to that one section, if you don't know what page that's on page 1597 of your Thompson Chain, where that is the pilgrimage of Israel, a type of the Christian life. And, there's probably more examples of things like that happening in these outlines that I haven't really found. But what I would probably look for, so if I was looking for that, all of this stuff kind of looks like a bunch of lists, so I don't really pay attention to that. What I would pay attention to is this text is bolded, all right? So I would pay attention to all the bold upper caps sections and say, okay, is there any other kind of cool ideas that is like that? So I can look, there's the life of Jeremiah, the message, that's kind of, to be expected. Keyword is salvation over here for Song of Solomon, book of Hosea, illustrations of the highly figurative language. Okay, so there's an extra section I wouldn't think of. Now, if you go to the New Testament, let's see here. Story of Onesimus. Just all kinds of things that you can look at. Like here's a section, the peculiarities of this epistle. And it's talking about the second epistle of Timothy. So there's all kinds of little bonus sections here that you can find if you just take the time to look through the outlines and all these other things too that you might not even know about. So I'm not going to take any more time. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks, Dad, for watching. Check out his page or our YouTube channel. Just look at Tim Beatty and he'll be available there. We've got a lot of cool Bible studies on there. Thanks to everyone who joined. And I haven't even looked at the questions to see if anybody's asking any questions or any chats. I don't see any questions or anything like that. Please check out the links below in the show more area of the YouTube video, and you can see where to get your own Thompson Chain Bible. You can see the video link to where I compared the King James Study Bible, the brand new second edition to the previous edition. And I just wanted to do this. This is an awesome thing. Maybe one of these days I'll do a how to study the Bible type of thing. I kind of always wanted to do that. I've got a pre-recorded lesson on that. And maybe we could do just like a hangout on that sometime, or I don't know. But I just want to do something different besides guitar, because I've got all these guitar videos that are releasing every week, and I just want to do something different. And maybe some more of these kind of videos later on down the line. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed it. And for those of you that didn't enjoy it, please don't leave any kind of, snide remarks or comments. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I understand. It's not for everybody. But just don't troll my channel, because I will ban you. I have had to do that before with people that just leave very rude comments and vulgar comments. I will not hesitate to kick you off if you do that. So I don't respond to that type of stuff. I don't have time for it, and I'm just not into that. I do the best to provide quality content. I've put over 500 videos on guitar on this channel, and I have no reason whatsoever to not be able to do other things if I want to. This is my channel. I put all the work into it. And that's just all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, thanks so much for everybody that watched, all the loyal fan base. Hope you got something out of this, and hope it really gave you some ideas on how to navigate your Thompson Chain Reference Bible or any other thumb index Bible that you have. Thanks so much for watching. Please stay tuned for any kind of videos that are coming up within the next week or so. I always release the new weekly video. Right now it's Monday, so tomorrow there should be a new video releasing for guitar. And just thanks so much for watching. And please subscribe, share this with anybody you think it would benefit. And thanks so much, and I'll talk to you later. Have a great and wonderful, blessed day, and God bless.